Hello Internet, and welcome to this fourth installment of our little OOREP introduction video series, in which we are going to detail how Materia medica search works. Materia medica search is accessible in the landing page if you just click on this tab, and then it shows you a view which looks very similar to a repertory view, where you have a drop down on the left hand side which you can use to select a Materia medica that's suitable to your needs. And the default, if you don't click on this and select anything, will be Clark's Materia medica. Clark's Materia medica arguably is a very nice medium-sized, not too small, not too big Materia medica that is rather comprehensive. Let's also in this regard use our example that we've used in the previous videos and talk about painful swollen gums in the mouth. And let's say you've done your repertorization, you've narrowed it down to 1, 2, 3, 5 remedies, and now you want to use the Materia medica and find out which one matches. So you can look for gums swollen, for instance, and you see 64 chapters, 2 result pages. Each Materia medica result page has at most 50 chapters. So you have 50 on the first page and 17 on the second page. And each chapter here corresponds to one of those boxes, or rather to a complete description of a remedy. So chapter and remedy here is synonymous. By default, all these chapters or remedies will be hidden. So you see the chapter headline here, so to speak, the remedy name, and then below it you see the matching sections. And if you click on one of those sections, for instance here on this little arrow here, then they pop open or they unfold, and you can see the actual matching section. The rest of the Bismuthum chapter in this case is hidden. In the search it only shows you those sections that actually contain the keywords. And here we have gums swollen, and OOREP nicely highlights them already in yellow for us. By default, as you've seen, the sections are all hidden, and maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you want to get an overview, then you can use these shortcuts up here to all unfold them, so you get the whole results just as they are, or you can hide them and then roll down to the remedy that you're interested in, Kali arsenicum or arsenicosum in this case, and then just unfold this particular one. So let's just unfold them all and have a look at what we are finding here. Here, when we look at arum maculatum, for instance, we have an interesting case that will happen rather often, I guess, when you search in the Materia medica. The Materia medica search works in such a way that all the terms have to appear in one section. And indeed, gums and swollen appears in one section, in the mouth section of that particular remedy, but not connected. So you have the bleeding gums and you have the swollen tongue, but not the swollen gums as we've been looking for. And to sort of to overcome this little weakness, or to make the search sometimes more fitting, it's the same here: swelling of the tongue, and then we have in the region of the palate and upper anterior gums. So these are not connected. And if you want to filter these out, for instance, or if you just want to get those that specifically really talk about swollen gums, then we can use the exact search. This is the first search feature I want to highlight in particular. So you do this by putting quotation marks here, and then you say gums swollen again, as opposed to just as we did before, gums and swollen, and then hit return. So if you now hit return, with the quotation marks there, we get far less chapters, but you notice we get only exact search. We no longer get sections that contain gums and swollen, but in independent sentences and meanings. So every section that now matches our exact search is really about swollen gums. I highlighted this also in the repertory search, and I said that there too, that the search basically in Materia medica and in the repertory search is the same. But personally, I find that the exact search is a lot more useful in the Materia medica than it is in the for the short rubrics in the repertory search. Yeah? So the first item, please, that you remember is use quotations marks like this for exact search. And a thing that I also want you to notice here, just while we're at it, you see the results here, and it's just showing you those sections that match. But of course, for instance, Kali arsenicosum has more than just the mouth section. There's a lot more. And if you want to find out more about Kali arsenicosum, then you just click on the chapter heading, or rather the name of the remedy, and it loads the entire chapter, the entire description of that remedy, and you can study the entire chapter in more detail. Of course, it's no longer highlighting the search terms because we've navigated away by clicking on this headline. We've navigated away from our search terms. But in this case, I really recommend and want you to use the browser. This is a browser application, and you should make use of the browser because this is the intention. This is the intended use of OOREP. I don't have to implement certain functionalities if they're already in the browser. So use the search function here, and then, for instance, look for gums swollen, and you find it again just with using the browser. And the other thing you can do here is you can click on this cogwheel here, which, like in the repertory search, opens the extended search features. In this case, a search bar where you can enter remedy names. So let's go for Kali arsenicosum. Yeah, there's completion here. You can just click on that. And let's just, for the sake of argument, do gums swollen again, because if you combine the two, if you put a remedy here and you put the search term up here, then it searches for this search term only in this remedy here. Yeah. Or you could do the same thing. You could look, for instance, for pain symptoms in arsenicum, arsenicum album. Then you get arsenicum album, and you get all the pain sections, which in arsenicum expectedly are quite a few. Just for this particular remedy. It doesn't look for pain in any of the other chapters. It looks for it specifically in arsenicum album. So let's just click on arsenicum album and get the whole chapter here, and we can study it in detail. And you will also, or might have also already noticed here on the right-hand side, that there's also links to the other Materia medicas here. So on the right-hand side, you always, for every chapter, you always see the other Materia medicas that also have a description on this remedy here. And if you click on them, not surprisingly, let's, for instance, use Ellen's keynotes, then you get the arsenicum album chapter of Ellen's keynotes. Ellen's keynotes, unlike Clark, are a lot more brief. They're a lot more to the point. This is the idea of the keynotes. And then you can sort of compare, or you can or the description of the various remedies complement one another. Sometimes one author has a little bit more or to say about a remedy, or sometimes more information became available later. So you get a rather complete picture by looking up arsenicum album, for instance, and all of the different Materia medicas here. For instance, another interesting one, because it's very brief, like the keynotes, is Boger's synoptic key. And then you just get the typical arrangements of the synoptic key, where the modalities, what's better, what's worse, and which region of the body is affected, and a brief description of the characteristics and so on. So the complete opposite of these brief, just for completeness sake, the complete opposite would be Timothy Field Allen's Pure Materia Medica, which is like I think an 11-volume book, which is probably the most comprehensive of all the Materia medicas. Let's just look at the arsenicum album description here, and we see that the sections are all huge. And again, if you want to find something in this section now, a very efficient and nice way is to just use your browser and the search functionality, which I'm using down here, and then just go through all the results that the browser finds. My browser is the Firefox, and it shows you on the left-hand side all the things marked in red, all the lines for matches of pain, which is a lot here in this case. Right. We can also here hide all the results sections again, and then get a rather good overview of the chapter here, and see whether there's a lot of substance to it or not. So we hide this again and open the Clark, our default again, which I said is I think a pretty nice medium-sized one. And let's look for mouth pain again. I want to highlight another interesting feature here now is, we had what did we have? We had the swollen gums, right? Gums swollen, and we had the exact search. So we had 21 chapters. The interesting bit here is that this exact search probably missed some sections, or in all likelihood missed some sections that relate to swollen gums, because it misses gums swelling, it misses swollen gums, and so on. And one of the things you can do is, for instance, you can look for gums, or you can look for, let's just do this separately. Let's do gums, or gum and SW star, because this now should match everything: gum, the singular, gums, the plural, swelling, swollen, and so on. So this star is a wildcard, and it's short for any completion, so of the word or even of the sentence. So we are now getting a lot more results, I suspect. And let's just do them all, and we see, okay, we also get, of course, again, a bit misleading results. We get gums and sweet, but we get the swollen gums. We get the, where do we have swelling of gums? Swelling of the lower gums, which we didn't do before. So we get the swellings of the gums, swelling of the gums here. And this is all things that we missed in the exact search. So the exact search gave us 21 chapters, and gum star SW star gives us 148 chapters. And the interesting thing here is you can combine these two search modes. You can use gums, for instance, SW star, and then you get gums swollen, but also gums swelled, for instance, which we didn't do before. So this is the second takeaway message. You can use wildcards for the completion of any term. A classic example for that is, for instance, also pain. So when we're looking for pain sections, which is probably quite a lot already, we have 750 rubrics matching, or sorry, remedies matching. But if we look for pain star, which matches painless, painful, pains, and so on, we should get a few more. We get pain star, we get 819. So almost 100 chapters more, or remedies more, match painful. Let's have a look if we see this here. We have pains, which is pain star matches also pains, so the plural of the word. We have, what else do we have here? We have painful, and so on. So the second takeaway message is, besides the exact search and quotation marks, use the stars. And maybe the second and a half takeaway message is you can combine the two by saying gums SW star, and then you get the exact search where you have gums followed by SW followed by anything. Yeah, so this is the two modes. The other thing, when you're looking for something like pain for a very broad rubric, then of course the way to narrow it down is if you're entering more symptoms. Of course, pain mouth is of course a lot more specific than just pain. Okay, from 750 to 250. But let's say you don't want a teeth. You want specific pains about the mouth that are not relating to the teeth. Then you can say mouth pain, but not teeth. And you do this with a minus symbol. Yeah? Minus excludes things. And let's see if there's anything left here when we do that. Yeah, 218. So we get sections now that talk about or that potentially talk about pain of the mouth, but they don't talk about teeth. So you're not getting any of the typical just caries or whatever. You get any other pain that relates to the mouth. And if you let's use this button to bring up the previous search term. Here, this little arrow brings up what we've searched for last. You can also exclude, for instance, pain in the tongue. If you see a lot of things here popping up with results about the tongue, you say, no, I'm not interested in those either. So you exclude them too. I think that just cut off almost 100 further sections. And this is another way to really nicely cut down your case that you or the search that you've just initiated by saying not only what you want to see, but only saying what you don't want to see. Needless to say, you can also combine again the wildcard search. So you could say you could say I want mouth, pain, and nothing about teeth, tooth. Well, in this case, tongues. I don't really think in this case it makes a difference or a big difference, but you can combine all these different modes. And so this is the third takeaway message. You can exclude results using minus. And if that was a little bit quick, or if you at any point in the future want to look that up again, I urge you to click up here in the frequently asked questions and answers up there, scroll to the bottom more or less, and there is these 3 blue boxes. And if you don't want to read anything, if you don't want to go through any manuals or rewatch the videos, the only thing you want to remember is to go down here, because these 3 boxes in a nutshell detail how the search works. This will be a reminder for pretty much everything I've just said to you. Right, I just scroll down again, click on home. We're going back to the Materia medica search. And then I want to highlight something which is not so much a feature, I guess, of Materia medica search, but something that can be very useful for, I think, especially for beginners and novices. Like I consider myself, I'm everything but a trained homeopath, and I find it sometimes useful to look up for a clinical, how should I say, a clinical description of a case. So in a nutshell, the repertorization is about finding exact rubrics that match very specific, say, bodily sensations and peculiarities. But sometimes you just you don't really find the right rubric, say, or you have a picture, say, like, I don't know, a ringing in the ears, a tinnitus, which you can look up in 2 ways. You can ask a person or ask yourself, what type of ringing do I have? Is it more a buzzing? Is it a fuzzing? Is it noisy? Whatever, and then you find the right rubric, or which is sometimes very useful. You're looking up just the clinical term, and that can be, for instance, the word tinnitus. I use again the wildcard here, tinnit, and I hopefully get all the tinnitus sections. And there is something that I just want to draw your attention to. Not unexpectedly, you find a lot of 47 chapters here that match. But in particular, quite often you find that the clinical section here matches, and this is in the Clark Materia Medica a very useful section, because what you can do is you can, for instance, say, I just want the clinical pictures, like remedies that are often in connection to a clinical picture of tinnitus. And then you say clinic star, say tinnitus star, and if you do this, then you get mostly or only the clinical sections of all these remedies. That is, you get all the remedies that have an affinity to tinnitus. And the clinical section is very useful like that, because it's a little bit of a different view on a case or on symptoms than you get with the repertory. So if you want to get a case started, sometimes asthma, for instance, is also a nice example here. Asthma, you wouldn't repertorize necessarily for various types of asthma. You would repertorize for breathing symptoms, for coughing symptoms, and so on. But if you are interested in the clinical picture of asthma, then a very good way is you do clinic asthma, say, you enter return, and then you get all the clinical sections here to do with asthma. So searching, what I'm saying is OOREP also matches the headline of a section, and searching for that headline, clinical here gives you a very nice sort of hidden feature of a clinical search that you don't necessarily get in a repertory. Having said that, just very briefly, if you click on the repertory, there is for instance, Cowperthwaite's clinical index in German, unfortunately only, which is exactly that. It's a search for clinical symptoms. I wonder if it has tinnitus as well. Yeah, it does. Tinnitus, ear ringing, and then it says which of the remedies have an affinity to it. But if you look, for instance, in Kent repertory for clinical term tinnitus, then let's have a look if that pops up. No results returned. That's exactly what I expected. Tinnitus is not something that's a rubric. In the repertory, you would know in a non-clinical repertory, you would normally look for the various ear sounds as opposed to a clinical picture. But sometimes, like I said, it's very good to get started with a clinical picture and just find out which remedies to take into consideration at all. Right. Another feature which I personally find very useful very often is, let's say, especially those people that go about the miasmatic theories that are out there, and for instance say, yeah, I have a case here or patient here with a affinity to the kalium salts. Then you can, of course, here look up kali arsenicosum, for instance. We had that earlier. And you can say, okay, I looked that up, don't enter any symptoms, then I get exactly the description of kali arsenicosum. And that may be useful, but there's many kali salts and some of them are similar. And one of the things you can do is you can just enter here kali and nothing else. And that gives you not just a description of this one kali salt, but of 23 chapter titles that start with kali or have kali in them in a specific way. Let's just hide the results and see which ones those are. Kali aceticum, kali arsenicosum, kali bichromium, and so on. And this can be very useful to compare or to find out the differences between the different kali salts. The same, of course, is true for the natrium salts. Natrium, say, then you get all the natriums that are here in the Materia medica. This is a very useful feature, and I show you with the arsenicums. There is something to remind to show you something to look out for. If you enter R star, which is the shortcut for or the abbreviation for arsenicum album, you don't get all the arsenics. You get arsenicum album simply because Ars is the exact abbreviation of arsenicum album. If you want all the other arsenicums, then you have to type a little bit more arsenic, say, and then it's not the exact arsenicum album abbreviation, but it's the beginning of all the arsenics in this Materia medica. And now you can compare, for instance, classic here, arsenicum iode with arsenicum album, two somewhat similar remedies. Yeah. If you enter something here that's not unique or that's wrong, like R, then OOREP will complain and will just say, look, this doesn't exist. Final thing I just want to draw your attention to is that some of these Materia medicas here, in particular two, I think, the Böhrike's Pocket Manual and Boger's Synoptic Key, appear exactly in the same spelling here in the repertory part. And that is because these books were published at the time with two parts in them, a repertory part and a Materia medica part. And in these two instances, I have managed to include both of them in OOREP. And that can be very useful because Boger's Synoptic Key in particular has a very different say, approach to repertorization than, for instance, Kent has, the Kent repertory. You have this supplement section here, which is very unique, and the cases tend to be rather short. So you don't need a lot of rubrics to repertorize with Boger's Synoptic Key. Everything is very brief, and you have you only look at the main symptoms, so to speak. And in the Materia medica part here, if you also go for Boger's Synoptic Key, you get the same briefness here. It follows this philosophy of how should I say, to the point repertorization. And it can be very useful for these special or unique books to have both parts in the Materia medica part as well as the repertory part. Right. And with that information, I want to leave you in this video and hope to see you at some other video. Thank you very much and good luck repertorizing and looking up the Materia medicas. Bye-bye.